Hi, I'm the author of Mapping the Human Mind, a philosophical journey through time, thought, and consciousness. I've been reading a chapter of my book each week. This is Chapter 7, The Council of Nicea and the Standardization of Belief. Ever tried to get 10 people to agree on where to go for dinner? Now imagine trying to get leaders from across the Roman Empire to agree on the exact nature of God, Christ, and salvation. That's essentially what Constantine was trying to facilitate at the Council of Nicea in 325 CE. But here's what religious history often glosses over. Early Christianity emerged not as a unified movement, but as a diverse collection of communities with wildly different views. Some believed Jesus brought secret knowledge to liberate the soul. Others saw him as a prophet, a divine spirit in disguise, or the literal incarnation of God. Certain groups even rejected the Hebrew Bible entirely, claiming Jesus revealed a gentler, higher deity. Christianity's kaleidoscope of beliefs. Zooming in on daily life, the variety could be startling. In Alexandria, Christian thinkers fused Neoplatonism with the Gospels, turning salvation into a philosophical ascent towards the One. Syrian desert ascetics embraced radical self-denial, convinced the body was a battlefield for the soul. North African revivalists chased vivid spiritual experiences, like visions, glossolalia, and prophetic utterance, while church leaders in Rome drilled down on hierarchy, sacraments, and orderly liturgy. This diversity went far beyond regional preferences. It reflected fundamental disagreements about the nature of reality itself. Who exactly was Jesus? Fully divine, fully human, both simultaneously. Did he exist before his birth? Was he created by God or eternally existent? These weren't academic debates for theological experts. They shaped how Christians lived, worshipped, and understood their place in the cosmos. For ordinary believers, the effect could be dizzying. Travel 100 miles and hear a different creed. Cross a city gate and find a congregation that called your last preacher a heretic. Spiritual authority felt fragmented. Certainty felt elusive. As the movement's numbers and political visibility grew, that doctrinal free-for-all threatened both credibility and cohesion. A faith claiming universal truth couldn't keep delivering incompatible answers. Constantine sensed it. If Christianity was going to help unify his empire, it needed to unify itself first, and the difficulties didn't end there. The ultimate religious cage match. Here's where monotheism creates a special problem. If there's only one God and one truth, then someone's got to be wrong. In polytheistic systems, contradictory beliefs could coexist relatively peacefully. Maybe your God controls the rain in this region, while another deity handles precipitation elsewhere. No big deal. But institutional monotheism insists on a unified, coherent understanding of a single divine reality. From this perspective, some interpretations weren't just different, they were dangerously wrong. Enter the concept of heresy. The word comes from the Greek heresis, originally a neutral term for choice or sect, which later took on a negative connotation. A heretic became someone accused of choosing error over perceived truth. As a salvation-focused religion, they believed teaching the wrong ideas about God posed a serious threat, not just to understanding, but to the eternal fate of souls. In practice, defining orthodoxy served a double purpose: genuine guardianship of what leaders believed to be the saving truth, and the consolidation of social power. Whoever controlled the creed controlled the community, deciding who belonged and who was cast out. In an age when religion and politics were inseparable, that authority could mean exile, legal penalties, or worse. As Christianity gained political power, theological disagreements became matters of state concern. Constantine may have not fully grasped all the theological nuances, but he understood that religious division threatened his vision of a unified empire. Which brings us to the controversy that would trigger the most famous church council in history. The Arian controversy. In Alexandria, a priest named Arius had triggered a theological firestorm with a seemingly reasonable position. Since there is one supreme God who is transcendent, Jesus, though divine in some sense, must be subordinate to God the Father. The Son must have been created by the Father at some point before the creation of the world. As Arius put it in a catchy theological jingle that spread across the empire, there was when he was not. In other words, there was a time before Jesus existed. Standing before Arius was Athanasius, who insisted that Jesus was of the same substance, homoousios in Greek, as the Father, fully divine, co-eternal, uncreated. For Athanasius, this wasn't mere theological hair-splitting, it touched the core of salvation itself. If Jesus was a created being, essentially different from God, then how could he truly bridge the gap between divine and human? Only God could save humanity before becoming truly one with it. This debate was about how divinity itself worked, whether humans could participate in divine life or merely worship it from a distance, whether the infinite could truly enter the finite, whether eternity could truly enter time. Constantine, probably mystified by the theological complexities but clear-eyed about the growing divisions, called together bishops from across the empire to settle the matter once and for all. They gathered in Nicea, modern-day Iznik, Turkey, in 325 CE for what would become the blueprint for resolving theological disputes for centuries to come. The result was the Nicene Creed, which declared Jesus to be begotten, not made, of one substance with the Father. Arius was condemned, his writings were burned, and he was exiled. Orthodoxy now had its first official definition backed by imperial authority. This was about establishing a process for determining truth that combined scriptural interpretation, philosophical reasoning, tradition, and institutional authority. It was the Roman genius for organization applied to matters of faith, and it would transform how humans understood belief itself. From diversity to binary. The Council of Nicea didn't just resolve a debate about who Christ was. It set a new template for how religious authority would function for centuries to come. Faith was no longer just a personal belief or a shared community practice. It became part of an organized, carefully defined system backed by institutional power. This move towards standardized belief marked a major shift in how people thought. Where once there had been a range of interpretations shaped by culture and local tradition, now there was a clear official version, orthodoxy, that everyone was expected to follow. It was like moving from a world of varied dialects to one imposed official language. The change didn't just streamline communication, it reshaped how people processed ideas. After Nicea, Christianity resembled an information system. Organised, hierarchical, and able to spread across vast regions without losing its core message. Clear definitions of right and wrong belief hardened the fluid early spectrum into categories: orthodox or heretical, in or out, 1 or 0. But the mindset that sharpened those binaries wasn't born in Christian dogma. It drew, ironically, on a philosophical tradition that once celebrated multiplicity, ambiguity, and debate. Greek logic became the sword, not the arena, of theological dispute. The Greek philosophical irony. Greek philosophical concepts, born in a culture that prized open inquiry, were pressed into service to shut down theological debate. Athanasius and his allies didn't just defeat Arius, they armed themselves with Platonic and Aristotelian categories to do it. The linchpin term homoousios, same substance, central to Nicene orthodoxy, wasn't found in Scripture. It was philosophical, not prophetic. Yet that single word reshaped Christian cosmology, collapsing divine mystery into precise metaphysical categories. Over time, these inherited tools of binary logic filtered far beyond religion. They spilled into science, where ideas were tested and either confirmed or rejected. They shaped the development of modern technology, which runs on literal binary code, and they crept into legal systems and education, where increasingly rigid classifications governed how truth was taught, understood, and applied. Universities often mirrored ecclesiastical structures, hierarchies of knowledge, echoing the architecture of orthodoxy itself. This philosophically hybrid nature of Christian doctrine didn't just influence theology, it helped reshape the entire cognitive landscape of the Western world. When Descartes laid the groundwork for the scientific revolution with his method of systematic doubt, he did so within a framework already structured by centuries of theological reasoning rooted in Nicea. From Nicea to Silicon Valley. The struggles of Nicea might seem ancient, but we're living through strikingly similar challenges today. When Facebook, X, or YouTube decide what content to allow or ban, they're engaging in a modern form of defining orthodoxy. The content moderation teams at tech companies are today unintentional theological councils, determining which ideas deserve application and which should be suppressed. Like Constantine, tech CEOs may not fully grasp all the philosophical nuances involved, but they understand that unchecked chaos threatens their vision of a unified platform. And like the bishops at Nicea, they're creating systems that will shape how billions of people understand reality, not through creeds, but through algorithms and community standards. In both cases, the fundamental challenge is the same: how to create coherence from diversity, how to establish their version of the truth in a world of competing narratives, and how to balance the human need for both certainty and exploration. The parallel isn't just about Silicon Valley, it reflects a deeper structural pattern. As communities scale, whether ancient churches or global platforms, the pressure to impose order on diversity intensifies. Systems of standardization arise not always to honor plurality, but sometimes to manage it, contain it, or erase it. Unity versus diversity. Constantine's dream of a unified faith serving a unified empire speaks to a perennial human longing for coherence and consensus. Yet the diversity of early Christianity before Nicea reflected a different truth. Human understanding is inherently varied, contextual, and plural. This tension between unity and diversity plays out everywhere today. We simultaneously celebrate multicultural diversity while seeking universal standards in science, ethics, and governance. We praise individualism while expecting conformity to social norms. We build global systems while defending local autonomy. Perhaps the most important lesson from Nicea isn't about the specific theological decisions made, but about this fundamental tension in human social organisation. The standardization of belief was a technological innovation as significant as writing or agriculture. It allowed human coordination at an unprecedented scale, but like all technologies, it came with costs as well as benefits. Looking at today's fragmented information landscape, we might wonder whether we're experiencing a digital age equivalent of pre-Nicene Christianity, a chaotic, diverse ecosystem of competing narratives waiting for some new form of standardization to emerge. Or perhaps we're moving towards something entirely new, a world where unity and diversity coexist in ways Constantine and his bishops could never have imagined. Even after orthodoxy was declared, dissent didn't vanish. It went underground. Some groups continue to circulate non-canonical gospels to preserve mystical teachings now labelled heretical. Centuries later, texts, like the Gospel of Thomas, could be discovered buried in desert caves, quiet testaments to theological paths not taken. Even within sanctioned churches, local variations and interpretive tensions simmered beneath the surface, revealing that the dream of total unity was always more fragile than it seemed. Paths not taken. The Roman approach to standardizing belief was powerful, but it wasn't the only possible response to theological diversity. While the Christian West developed increasingly rigid orthodoxies, other civilizations found different ways to handle competing truth claims. Some embraced intellectual diversity rather than suppressing it, creating spaces where ideas from different cultures, faiths, and philosophies could engage in productive dialogue. These alternative approaches to knowledge and belief remind us that standardization was a choice, not an inevitability. The legacy of Nicea isn't just the specific doctrines it established, but in how it modelled a particular relationship between power, knowledge, and belief, a relationship that continues to shape our world today in ways both visible and hidden. Thank you for listening to Beyond the Narrative.